Imagine standing in front of a machine that can actually do the impossible. We're talking about a device that bridges the ultimate gap between our hyper-connected, modern world and totally forgotten, dust-covered ruins. In this explainer, we're diving straight into a mind-bending thought experiment based on the piece Echoes of Antiquity.
So, what if you pressed a button and a voice from 3000 BCE just answered back? What if we could literally communicate with past civilizations? Across deserts, oceans, vanished dynasties, a real voice answers you. We're talking about completely breaking the timeline here. Think about what happens when the past isn't just silent stones and faded records anymore, but an actual living, breathing conversation.
Now, there's a really vital distinction we need to make here. We aren't talking about reading old carvings or, analyzing bone fragments. We're talking about hearing their real fears, their actual dreams, and their warnings speaking directly to us. It's not an archaeologist's guess about them, it's them. And honestly, that changes absolutely everything about how we perceive our own history. As you'll see, this illustrates a massive paradigm shift. The initial shock of contact wouldn't be scientific, it would be purely emotional. It totally shatters our view of history as just silent museum displays. A child in the Indus Valley is no longer just an archaeological trace in a textbook. Suddenly, she's a real voice laughing in a courtyard, asking her parents about the stars. The dead wouldn't feel dead anymore. They would feel incredibly human.
That humanity would just be absolutely overwhelming. We'd gain all these lost perspectives. Imagine hearing the sheer terror of witnessing an eclipse when you don't have modern science to explain it, or the physical, bone-deep exhaustion of building a massive temple under a burning sun, or, let's be honest, the incredibly relatable frustration of hating your local tax collector. Beneath all that dust, ancient people loved, laughed at jokes, argued politics, and worried about their crops exactly like we worry about our paychecks today.
But what's truly staggering is the sheer volume of context we'd suddenly inherit. As history's greatest empires come online, every historian basically becomes a detective, and every schoolbook is immediately outdated. The Sumerians could finally tell us what it actually felt like to live in the very first cities. The Egyptians could settle the debate on what the pyramids meant to the workers who built them. And the Indus Valley civilization, they could literally just read their undeciphered script to us. It's a complete rewriting of human origins.
But the thrill wouldn't just be asking what they built. We have eyes for that, right? The real thrill is relentlessly questioning the why. Why did they align those heavy monuments with specific stars? Why did they choose one ruler over another? Why did they create their specific myths? We would get to hear the actual pulse of human consciousness from thousands of years ago.
Ultimately, this whole concept redefines how we measure intelligence. We so often shallowly assume ancient people were less intelligent just because they lacked microchips and lasers. But this contact would prove their brilliance was just layered differently. They read the sky without apps. They organized massive, complex societies without computers. Their intelligence adapted perfectly to their environment.
Of course, we can't ignore the massive logistical hurdles here. Translating a vanished world requires ultimate humility. Words, sacred concepts, and entire ways of seeing the universe change over time. A moral rule might sound totally irrational to us if we take it out of its original context. We'd need legions of historians, linguists, and anthropologists just to make sure we aren't turning their complex truth into something simplistic and false.
Now here is where the narrative flips completely, and this is the part that would truly shake us. We naturally imagine ourselves as the learners and them as the teachers. But what if the connection worked both ways? If communication is open, they'd be incredibly curious about us. And, well, their questions might not be very comfortable to answer.
Just imagine the sting of hearing this from an ancestor. Why are your societies so large yet so lonely? They might wonder how we can communicate instantly across the entire globe, but still completely fail to solve hunger and war. They might ask whether our immense knowledge actually made us better people or just faster ones.
The past wouldn't just be our teachers anymore. They would become our critics, our witnesses, and perhaps even our judges. A Babylonian astronomer might be stunned by our telescopes, but devastated that our city lights hide the night sky. A Roman engineer might look at our modern bridges and skyscrapers and ask if they're actually built to last, or just built to impress modern investors. It's a pretty sobering mirror held up to our modern pride.
So what does this all mean? The practical consequences of all this truth would completely unravel our current institutions. It would force a sometimes painful honesty onto our historical memory. Kingdoms we celebrate as noble might confess to being absolutely brutal.
Religious texts could be clarified or profoundly challenged. On the flip side, though, we might recover lost ecological science, like ancient weather anomalies or forgotten agricultural methods that could genuinely help us today.
Think about how this transforms education. Museums would stop being silent halls and become vibrant portals of dialogue. A clay tablet or a burial mask wouldn't just be a flat object sitting behind glass anymore. You could literally stand in front of it and hear the civilization explain its exact purpose and the personal family story behind it. It would completely change how we educate the next generation, replacing cold, hard certainty with rich, demanding complexity.
And you know for sure they wouldn't be shy about their failures. We'd learn that civilizational collapse isn't just a date on a timeline or the fall of some king. Collapse is personal. It's the breaking of daily life. It's experienced brutally by families and everyday workers. They could warn us firsthand about overexpansion, environmental damage, and division. They could remind us that no society survives if it forgets justice.
All of this brings us to the ethics of such a breakthrough, because knowledge without ethics is a fast track to corruption. This kind of power would demand total responsibility from us. We'd have to listen honestly, represent their voices fairly, and crucially, avoid using their historical pain just to score points in modern political arguments. History would have to stop being a trophy and become a true two-way relationship.
Stripped of all the clothing, language, and technology differences, we'd realize something profound. The fundamental human spirit seeks the exact same things across millennia. The ancient mind didn't just respond to tools, it created meaning first. We all share these exact same core human struggles: how to live, how to govern, and how to give life real meaning before it disappears.
So what this truly means is that communicating with them is really about communicating with ourselves. It forces us to recognize that one day we will be the past. We are not some isolated geniuses sitting at the end of history at the finish line. We're just the temporary guardians of a human story that began long before us and will hopefully continue long after we're gone. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought from the source material we're exploring today. Imagine the final moment of contact. A calm voice from thousands of years ago asks you this: after all your progress and all your machines, did you become wiser than we were? If the ancient world asked you this tonight, would you be ready with an honest answer? Because the answer to that question really determines where we are going next.